Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. The DRFBets race of the day for Friday, November the 9th. Well, it's opening day at Del Mar, and we've got stakes action for you. Race number 7, 1 mile on the turf. It's the Kathryn Crosby Stakes for fillies and mares. You can bet this race. You can bet the opening day Del Mar card with your own DRFBets account. Sign up at bets.drf.com. Receive a 300% deposit match. Here's the overflow field for the Kathryn Crosby, and you can access free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Download them, handicap along with us. We'll take the field in post position order, beginning with the number 1 Gliding By. And these connections purchased Gliding By in November of 2017 for only $62,000. It looked like they might have gotten a bargain on a promising horse, and unfortunately for Gliding By, she's had a very abbreviated campaign for these connections. Only 3 starts, but it was nice to see her get back to her winning ways off a long layoff last time out.
Yeah, I have to be honest, when she was a 2-year-old, I thought she was going to end up being a really serious 3-year-old, sort of, middle distance turfer. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, she never took any sort of step forward. And it feels like belatedly, as a 5-year-old now, she's finally started to get going. But like you say, she's had a bit of a start and stop campaign. If you think second off the bench she's going to take that step forward necessary, I mean, from a buyer standpoint, she's already right there as a fringe contender. Time form, she probably needs to improve slightly in this spot. It is interesting to see that Flavian Pratt is elsewhere. But you know what? If you're looking for a little bit of a price in here, if you don't look at the race the way that I look at the race, and you're looking for a price, I think Gliding By is very interesting.
She's got good tactical speed. She should be able to save valuable ground breaking from the inside post, and this is her distance. I just get the feeling that the mile is what she wants. She could be able to crack the exotics at the very least at a nice price. The number 2 Psycho Sister, let's draw a line through her most recent race, the City of Hope Mile against the boys. She was 35-1 for a reason. She's just not that type of mare. Draw a line through that race, and you're left with 2 good gate-to-wire efforts at Golden Gate Fields. And as we take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector, her speed should have her in front, but that red bar could cause some problems.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, and to be honest with you, I would like her a little bit more if we were still at Santa Anita, where it feels like that speed carries a little bit better on that turf as opposed to the Del Mar grass. It doesn't mean that she's incapable of winning, obviously. Like you say, that run 2 starts back, that gives her a chance. I just don't love the way that this thing sets up on paper for her.
Well, the number 3 Miss Southern Miss has done most of her work going down the hill at Santa Anita at 6.5 furlongs. She is a stakes winner at the mile distance. That was way back as a 2-year-old in her turf debut in the Surfer Girls Stakes. My one main concern with Miss Southern Miss is she hasn't gotten much better this year. She's only raced 4 times. Maybe she's rounding into form in her 3rd start back. But to me, this is the kind of filly that I wonder if she was an early 2-year-old and they've caught up with her.
Yeah, I agree with that. She just hasn't really taken that step forward, and I think it's unfortunate. When they tried her as a 3-year-old in that Las Virgenes, she's gone for a long time after that, and I feel like, you know what, look, everybody gets that sort of fever. Maybe you think you can get into the Oaks or something like that. I do wonder if that sort of stunted her continuing sort of progression, because I think she was supposed to be a nice middle distance miler on grass. Never really happened. Still down the hill she has a puncher's chance, but in a race like this, I don't love the form that she's in at this point. I'm not totally convinced that this distance is going to work.
We've talked about it so many times on our various programs here on DRFTV. East Coast-based horses, they ship west on turf, and they just make hay in these stakes races. And Excellent Sunset, the number 4, just seems properly placed for this spot. I mean, she was a bargain purchase overseas, came over here, has won 2 of 3 starts. Now, I'm not sure she beat much in that race at Keeneland last time out, but this is a filly with good tactical speed and a little bit of upside, and heck, maybe she was facing better or comparable competition, and despite the hike up from the 2X to this restricted stake.
And I also think you kind of touched on it a little bit, that tactical speed that she brings in here. I think she could work out a good trip. If you think she's able to get the jump on the deep closers or the horses that she's likely going to have to hold off, and you think that there's going to be a spirited pace for her to sit just off, I mean, she in many ways could work out an ideal trip in this spot. I'm not totally convinced that she's quite this good, but as you made mention, we've seen numerous times in the past lesser East Coast horses come out west and they have a field day. Maybe this one fits the bill as well.
A fast pace could really help out the number 5. She has the right stuff. We see her all the way at the back of this fast pace projector. Last time out, she didn't get that kind of a situation in an optional claiming race during the Del Mar summer meet. It's interesting to note that her most recent win came at Del Mar off about a 2-month layoff, and she's coming into this race fresh as well.
I think that the tough thing for me when looking at her, I think on her best day she has a chance in a race like this, but I can't help but notice the most recent victory, like you say, it came at Del Mar back in July of 17, but it was in the N2X level, and it feels like once they've gotten her out of that, it just doesn't seem like she can cut the mustard. I think to me, she would be best used underneath, if at all. I don't love her chances as far as a win contender.
Our next three entrants finished second, third, and fourth, respectively, in the $75,000 Swing Time Stakes last month at Santa Anita. We'll begin with the runner-up in that race, Kay Beck, and I thought Kay Beck, all in all, got a very nice trip and ride from Rafael Bejarano. She saved ground every step of the way, eased out in the stretch, and was only beaten 3/4 of a length by Fahan Moura, who's just a speedball that came back to run really well in the Goldakova last week with a 99 Beyer speed figure. She got a nice trip. She was relatively close to the fast pace. She just seems like she's in good form for Richard Baltus, and she's run well at Del Mar in the past.
Yeah, 2 times in the exacta, one of those a victory over the Del Mar turf. She makes all the sense in the world. Highest last out, or co-highest last out with a 96. And like you say, to me, the Swing Time is the race that you really need to focus in on. That race, and there's one other horse we'll touch on in a little bit. To me, it's one of those 4. I'd be surprised if somebody else got it done. Quebec, everything you made mention. Bejarano gave her a good ride. She saved ground, and she came out and she tried. She had a good pace to run at that day. I don't know if it'll be quite as swift this time around, but I think she has another giant chance in a spot like this. And she's real honest. Look at her, 10 times out of 19 in the exacta.
Quebec edged Way to Versailles for the runner-up spot in the Swing Time. It was Way to Versailles' first race for Peter Miller, and trip-wise, I thought Flavien Prat gave Way to Versailles a really nice trip. She saved ground in behind the leader, but you could also argue that she was the closest part to that fast pace, and she was still punching around at the end. My main concern's the mile. I wonder if she's better at slightly shorter distances.
Yeah, it's possible, and we've only seen her try this mile really once, and they tried a mile and a 16th with her on the synth up at Woodbine back in December of 2017, but there's a part of me that does wonder, like you said, she was the first one, or she was closest attending that pace, which ended up being a little bit faster than I think anybody else anticipated, even with Fahan Moura in there. And I understand Fahan Moura didn't stop, but we know if she was in this race, she'd be probably odds on. I feel like Way to Versailles could work at a much more advantageous situation this time around, where perhaps the pace is 2 or 3 lengths slower than what you saw in that Swing Time. She gets the first run on everyone else. I just am not totally convinced that she has some sort of giant edge on the rest of this field where I would want to settle for a shortish price. I think she's one of the main contenders, if not the horse to beat. I just don't know that I would want 2-1 or 5-2, which I think is where she'll end up.
Trainer Danny Blacker's done a really nice job with Tona Hutu. She's been very consistent since shipping in to Blacker's barn in Southern California. The worst finish, a 4th place effort last time out in the Swing Time. Now, she got the best of it from a pace situation that day. The good news for Tona Hutu is she might get another similar situation here, and if you believe that last buyer, and that's kind of a question mark in this race, do you believe the Swing Time buyer? I'm guessing they're kind of basing it off Way to Versailles, 94 from 2 starts back, because it's a big move forward for K-Back, it's a big move forward for Tona Hutu.
Yeah, it is certainly something to keep in mind, but I do think the fact that Fahan Moura came back and earned that 99 in that next start, at least maybe, I don't want to say it validates the number, but it at least allays some of the concerns for me. Tona Hutu is the one of the 3 coming out of that Swing Time that I'm most interested in. You're right, she did have the most pace sort of help in that spot where she came from off of it and they really threw it down. But in the grand scheme of things, I thought she was spun quite wide coming off the far turn, and she plugged on at the end. I think the other thing, to me anyway, that's intriguing about her is I do wonder, as well as she ran there at Santa Anita, she clearly loves the Del Mar turf. She's never been out of the exacta in 3 lifetime starts, and I know one of those was a 5/8 race. But I think we've talked about it. Some of those turf courses can be a little bit horse for course. I think she's got a big chance in here.
How about the 9 Escape Clause? She's won her last 8 races. She's won 16 of her last 21 starts. She's sort of the queen on the dirt in Western Canada. She's just been dominating the competition at Century Downs, of all places, in her last 2 races. She's got some speed, but the big question mark here is turf. She's got a really strong pedigree, but this Manitoba bred doesn't have a lot of turf there.
To be honest with you, I don't know what you're going to get from this horse. To me, I think the way that I'm approaching her, look, if she goes out there and wins, I tip my cap and say, good on you. This was a great move, really heady sort of situation where you send her down there and you can take advantage. I'm looking at her saying she really has one way to go. She's going to be forwardly placed. I think she's going to help ensure that there is pace in this race. I think she's going to help ensure that if you like a horse coming from off of it, They should have every opportunity. I don't like her in here, but I think she at least ensures that the pace is serious.
Sweet Charity was bought for over $500,000 back in the fall of 2016, and she's run well in North America for trainer John Sadler. Graded stakes placed in the Santa Ana in 2017. Last time out in the Buena Vista, something must have happened to her because it precipitated a long layoff, and she was facing such tougher competition. I mean, Fault at that point turned into a top dirt horse, winning the Santa Margarita and the Adoration with buyers of 101 and 94 respectively. John Sadler said this mare's suffered from a back injury, other issues. I think it's great that she's back here because she could be a valuable broodmare as a stakes winner in France and graded placed in North America. Maybe this is a prep for something else down the line, but I think she's feeling good.
Yeah, so maybe I'm on an island with this. When I look at her, she's taken money in every one of her North American starts, and she hasn't run poorly in any of them. And like I say, the Buena Vista, just give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't love her. I feel like there's a real scenario where she's just more of a nibbler than anything else. She's going to take a ton of money in this race again. And look, she can certainly win. I'm not saying that she can't, but it's just one of those instances where I don't think she has any edge. Forget about a little edge. I don't think she has any edge on this field from what she's done here in the States. And if you think she's going to take some money in here and be possibly the first choice or the second choice, to me, if I'm going to use her, I'm going to use her underneath. I don't trust her on top. She can win. I don't want her.
That's certainly a fair point. The 11 Last Promise Kept, on the other hand, might actually be a really square price. And she is exiting the livest of live races. 4 next out winners came out of that one dreamer at Kentucky Downs. This filly was just far back early, swung wide turning into the straight, and she ran well against a legitimate graded stakes horse and on leave.
Yeah, you know what? I thought she just plugged on nicely down the center of the stretch, and like you say, she came from well out of it. That Kentucky Downs turf course, hit or miss if any of those horses are going to like it. But the fact that so many of them have exited and performed as well as they have. Now, some of the figures have not been over the top, but some of them have been nice. On Leave came back and earned that 89. She faced much tougher up at Belmont in her next start. The runner-up came back and won next out with an 85 buyer, and you had a couple of mid-80 buyers in the rest of the body of the field. I just feel like this is one of those instances where Tom Proctor, of all people, he knows taking a horse that's probably middle of the pack on the East Coast, we can come out here and we can make, hey, there's money to be made on the West Coast. In Proctor, I trust.
Number 12, Pants on Fire, I thought ran deceptively well for Richard Baltus last time out at Del Mar. Just look at those fractions. That's a mile and a 16th race. And they went the half in 49 seconds flat, and Pants on Fire's just at the back of the pack. She would have had to have sprinted home in supersonic time to win that race. And all things considered, to finish 4th, beaten 3 lengths and running at the end of that race was a good effort. The runner-up is a solid horse. Came back to run 3rd in an optional with an 88, then 3rd in the Grade 3 Ken Matty going down the hill with an 89. I'm not sure Pants on Fire is good enough to win this race, but with a fast pace, maybe she comes along for another piece. I do wonder if she likes the Great Race Place a little bit better than Del Mar.
Yeah, 0 for 6 at Del Mar, and she's only hit the board on 2 occasions. But I agree with you. The most recent run, I think, is better than it looks. I think that was a solid enough effort. And also, I feel like you can make an argument that maybe she's a little bit dirtied up on paper. That run 2 starts back. She's never going to run with Cambodia and Madam Stripes and Sophie P. 3 starts back. Admittedly, I didn't love the Ostenitas as a whole, but you ran into some good ones. Fahanmur, Akira is okay, Midnight Crossing. Then you've got that big gap, and you've got the Possibly Perfect at 1.25 miles too far for. The Santa Barbara, 1.5 miles too far for. Then you're left with that win at Santa Anita going 9 furlongs in the N2X. I think she's a little bit dirtied up. If she gets some pace, I think she'll come with a run.
It's all about a trip as well, hopefully finding a good position with a short run going into the first turn. Pick time for Friday's feature on the opening day card at Del Mar. You're going with the 11, Last Promise Kept, shipping west for Tommy Proctor, coming out of a live race. Should be a nice price.
I just feel like I've seen this story before, and I feel like I have a vague idea of how it ends up. I feel like the East Coast horse maybe on paper looks a little bit suspect, comes out there, maybe she doesn't win, but I think she acquits herself very nicely. For what it's worth, for Proctor, past 2 years turf domestic shippers route races at Del Mar, 6 for 17 with a 268 ROI. I think there's a lot to like here, but like I said before, if it's not her, I think it's one of those horses coming out of the swing time. I'm going to go 11, 8, 7, 6 in here.
I'm going with Quebec, the 6, coming out of that swing time. Again, we saw Fahanmura continue her string of excellent performances with a runner-up in the Goldacova. I like her tactical speed. This is her second start of the form cycle, and she's run well at Del Mar. She ticks a lot of boxes for trainer Richard Baltus. I'm going to go with Quebec on top, 6, 7, 8, 11 in Friday's race of the day, the Kathryn Crosby Stakes. Bet it with a new DRFBets account. You will be rewarded with a 300% deposit match at bets.drf.com. An approximate post time for the Kathryn Crosby, 3:30 Pacific on Friday afternoon. Good luck.